Thank you for having me. I'm Stephann Makri from Museum Interaction Centre. We're going to be talking today about a UK Research Council funded project called Serena. You might have heard bits about it before, that aims to gain a rich understanding of people's experiences of serendipity, how they come across information serendipitously as part of their research primarily, and how we can design digital information resources based on this understanding. Okay, but what is serendipity anyway? The Oxford English Dictionary definition: the occurrence and development of events by chance in a happy or beneficial way. But the term was coined in 1745 by Horace Walpole because he'd read a fairy tale where three princes were always making discoveries by accidents and sagacity of things they weren't in quest of. So it's this kind of sagacity, the idea that you actually have to do something and make something happen. It's not just about luck. I think it's missing from some existing definitions. So really, there is no kind of standard definition, and we felt existing definitions didn't really capture the essence of serendipity, so we wanted to gain a better understanding of it. So there are some existing systems that aim to facilitate serendipitous connections of some kind. This isn't in a research context though, but little thought seems to have been put into how useful they might be for users. So this one, Serendipita, gives you a kind of map and some instructions of some often bizarre instructions of things to do when you're walking around a city, so in this case New York. Head southeast towards 14th Street Loop and then look for someone who seems lonely and ask to walk with them for a while. This is Situationist, available at all good app stores. This came from the developer's own website. So Situationist creates extraordinary situations in your everyday life. It alerts members to each other's proximity and gets them to interact in random situations. These situations vary from the friendly, hug me for 5 seconds exactly, or compliment me on my haircut, to the subversive, e.g. help me browse everyone around us into revolutionary fervour and storm the nearest TV station. So we wanted to be able to use an understanding of serendipity to create systems that serve a useful purpose. So how we did this was through some semi-structured critical incident interviews with 28 academic researchers from a variety of different disciplines. We asked them to discuss in detail memorable experiences of coming across information serendipitously, either as part of their research or in everyday life. And I'm actually going to ask one of you to give me an example of this as well. So coming across information serendipitously, hopefully as part of your research, but if not, as part of everyday life. Start thinking, as I'm going to ask in a minute. Okay, so we found similarities in the examples that the interviewees provided. And so we were able to come up with a broad description of the process of serendipity. So this involves making a new connection between an informational or non-informational need and a thing, so a person, event, place, information, object that isn't related to information, with the potential to address the need. Now the circumstances that involve, that led to the connection being made, had to involve, they always involve, some amount of chance. The making of the connection itself always involved some amount of insight, and there was always some amount of value. So there's three core components: chance, insight, and value that go into making this connection. Once connections made, forward-facing projections are made of the potential value of the outcome, and then actions are taken to exploit the connection. And then these actions will eventually lead to a valuable outcome that addresses the need, but wasn't anticipated as a means of addressing it. And this is actually a kind of iterative process because the outcome may not become completely apparent at the time, the value of the outcome. It may not be stable. So you have to go through this kind of loop, through reflecting on the value, and then going back again and saying, well, okay, actually, I could do more to make this thing work for me, then do a bit more to exploit it, until the valuable outcome becomes stable. And then through this process of reflection at the end, which not many of us do, you can then consider this experience as serendipity. But very few of us actually reflect and say, oh, I experienced serendipity. Okay, so this is probably best illustrated with an example. So this comes from one of my interviewees. This was an urban design researcher, and she was thinking about how to design a joint university faculty building for sustainability in architecture. And the aim of this building design was to try to bring together researchers from two related disciplines. The interviewer wanted to design the movement in the building to provoke many different paths between rooms. Many different paths between rooms, so that in her words you had to walk past a series of exhibitions and possible inspirations on your way to your office every single day. So she was sitting in the studio, and this was at about 1 AM, thinking about how to design the building. And she was watching the US news-based comedy show, The Daily Show, which she frequently watched. And in this show, the host makes fun of the news and also interviews a guest towards the end. So in this particular show, the guest was a geologist who had found the wreckage of the Titanic. And when asked about his most significant rather than best-known finding, he described finding large ecosystems at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, where giant tube worms had a symbiotic relationship with creatures that would capture the sulfur that escaped from the Earth's crust and live inside the tube worms. So the interviewee found this pretty inspiring and translated the concept of the tube worm's symbiotic relationship with the creatures into a metaphor to guide her building design. So she turned it into a design metaphor. So it's a symbiotic, sustainable kind of design concept where spaces on the building live off each other, where if you've taken something and cut it off, you are cutting off some of the life source. So we can describe that in terms of our model. So the interviewee made a mental connection between her need to design the joint university faculty building to bring together researchers from the two departments, and the information that she came across about symbiotic relationships between the tube worms and the creatures. There was an amount of chance that was involved in the circumstances that led to the connection being made. She said that she only just happened to pop into the studio at 1 AM to pick something up and then ended up getting sidetracked. The show doesn't normally include much factual content, it's more of a comedy show. Jon Stewart ended up asking the geologist about something that was slightly off what most people would probably ask. And there was also a large amount of insight involved in making the connections, so in identifying the tube worm relationship as a potential design metaphor. The interviewee made a projection that this symbiotic relationship might be useful as a metaphor for design. And then she took action to exploit the connection by sketching several ideas for symbiotic building design. She even pulled over on the side of the road at 2 AM, pulled over 2 or 3 times, pulled out the sketchbook just to make sure she noted it down. And then she told me that the next day was Thanksgiving, and she went to one of her other architect friends and sang for Thanksgiving, and she was just talking a lot to get their ideas about the concept. And then this outcome was valuable for her as well. She commented, "I would never have found the passion to do the project that I did had I not stumbled upon that." And it was also unanticipated, as although she was trying to think of a way to design the building, she hadn't thought of the idea of the symbiotic relationship as a design metaphor. And then afterwards she did reflect a bit. She said to herself, "Wow, what a coincidence that this happened today." Okay, so at that point, I'm going to see if we can do a quick example.